Hello to all you wonderful creative people out there. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create this incredibly simple laser beam effect inside of Blender 2.8. And along the way, you're going to learn how to use curves as well as how to animate things along a curve. So let's get started. So this tutorial is going to be very quick and easy. But as always, we start off with our default scene. We're just going to delete our camera and our light, and we're going to use our default cube. We're going to just tab into edit mode, press G on our keyboard, press Z, hold down Control so it snaps to the grid, and then we'll tab out of edit mode, press S on our keyboard, scale it upwards, and press 5. We'll then go back into edit mode, press S on our keyboard and then press Z so it scales in the Z axis and type in 10. So now we've got some kind of a hallway that we're going to use. The next step is we're going to create our laser beam, which is going to be pretty easy. We'll just press 7 on our numpad, then we'll press Shift A, create a Bezier curve. We'll just place it where we want it. At the moment we can't see what's going on. If we press this button over here, it'll go into X-ray mode, allowing us to see the curve through the hallway. And then we can tab into edit mode and just place our curve exactly where and how we want it. Now you'll notice the curve isn't very angular like the laser beams. And what you want to do is press A to select all the points, go to control points, set handle type, vector, and now we've got these very angular curves. And when we select one of these points and press E for extrude, it will extrude a point that is still very angular. So we're just going to place all our different points by extruding until we've completely covered the hallway and place these points exactly where we want them. And there we go. We'll then press 1 on our keyboard in order to go to the side view, and then we'll just change the angle of these things in order to change things up just a little bit. So now when we look inside of our hallway, we can see how it will bounce around. Our next step is to go into the curves. The next step is to go into the object data tab over here for the curves and go to the geometry and increase the depth. So there we sort of have it. The same thickness all the way across, and it doesn't really look like a laser beam bouncing around. And the way we do that is by animating the bevel start and end values. So we go to frame 1. We start off by changing the end value to 0 and right clicking insert keyframe. Go ahead a few frames to maybe frame 50, change it to 1 and insert keyframe. We'll then go to frame 6 and we will right click on the bevel start to insert keyframe and go a few frames after, let's say frame 55, change the bevel start to 1 and right click insert keyframe. And if you want to see what the animation looks like without seeing the curve, just go to the top here and click on show overlays. So now we've got something that looks like that. You can increase and decrease the length of your laser beam by moving these values further or closer to each other. You can also change how fast or quickly it moves just by moving this down your timeline. And you can play around with the position. Now this doesn't really look too much like a laser beam just yet, because if we go into render mode, it kind of looks lame. So we're going to work on the materials next. So the first material that we're going to be taking a look at is going to be our laser beam. So head on over to the material tab, press new, and we'll name this laser. We'll then go here where it says surface and change it to emission. So now that already stands out on this background. The next thing we're going to do is just go over to our world settings, set our strength to 0, so now it's completely dark. We'll then go over to our render settings, turn on bloom, as well as screen space reflections. Now screen space reflections can be a little bit sensitive and it can be a little bit distorted, so I go into the material settings for our cube and create a new material for our cube, increase the roughness just a little bit and make it metallic. So this way it does kind of look like it's bouncing around and the light is actually affecting things. Also, if you change it to non-metallic, it kind of still works, because you want to just change the roughness so there's just enough reflection where it touches and it doesn't really affect everything else. And it kind of fakes that light, but if we wanted to really look cool, we're going to put a light inside of the scene. So Shift A, go down to light, point light, and here we've got our light. Let's just change our light settings, make it a lot brighter, increase the radius so it has a softer fall off. We can now decrease our power a little bit, so now we can see as it comes close to the walls it gets brighter, and that's exactly what we want. The next thing we're going to do is go to our constraints tab, click on add object constraint, and click on follow path. We'll then select our Bezier curve, and then we'll click on fixed position. And now as we change fixed position, our light tries to follow the curve, but my light over here has some transforms, so we must just go in here and change all the location X, Y, and Z to 0. So now there's no offset. It'll actually follow along the curve as it's meant to. The next step is to go to frame 1, change our offset to 0, right click, insert keyframe, go to frame 53 and change our offset to 1 and right click, insert keyframe. So now our light, our light kinda lags behind, and the reason being is because we need to move this keyframe over just a little bit. So now it follows along a lot better. There we go. So as you can see, if we were to change our light settings, make our light maybe a little bit brighter, we can see there's a shadow being cast by the light because of the laser beam itself is casting a shadow because it's just geometry. So what we're going to do is click on our just click on our laser beam, go down to the material tab, go down to the very bottom where it says shadow mode, and we're just going to change it to none. So now it doesn't cast a shadow at all. Now it does a pretty good job at faking the light and reflections and so forth inside of Eevee, but if you have the time and you want it to look a little bit better, I would suggest using cycles, because the emission material inside of cycles will actually give you a proper light source instead of it just being a faked light source like we're doing here. But before we finish, let's just take a look at a few other things. We can change the color of our light and change the color of our material pretty easily. By the way, if you become a patron, you'll be able to download this project for this tutorial as well as other tutorials that I've done in the past. And if you have any questions, just leave a comment below. And if you have any requests for tutorials or topics that you want me to cover, let me know and I'll be sure to cover it in the next video. And while you're down there in the description, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Maybe give the video a like, if you liked it. So, cheers everyone, stay creative, and see you next time.
From this distant vantage point, the Earth might not seem of any particular interest. But for us, it's different. Thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines. Every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization. Every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, every saint and sinner in the history of our species.